Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the franchise here on January 11th, 2024, the first episode of 2024. Been a while since we've done an episode of the podcast, but here we are. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. Bill Belichick and the Patriots parted ways. Nick Saban has retired. Pete Carroll has been let go as the head coach of the Seahawks. We have tons of head coaching openings in the NFL. Also, previewing NFL Super Wild Card Weekend. I'm going to go through each of these games, give my picks for each of these matchups this weekend, and then we're going to talk a little bit about MLB free agency. With some of the more recent moves, I know it's been 3-4 months since the last episode. I'm not going to talk Ohtani or any of these other previous moves, but mainly what's been happening around the league in the last few days or so. But mainly today, we are talking about these coaches in the NFL and these new head coach openings, as well as NFL wildcard weekend. Before we get into it, this podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I believe on Amazon Music as well. It's available on a lot of places. You can check the description of the episode for all of those platforms, as well as the Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok are all in the description of the episode. So I want to start here with Bill Belichick has officially parted ways with the New England Patriots, something that has been rumored and suspected pretty much the entire season with the New England Patriots has finally came to a reality. And he is finally no longer the head coach of the New England Patriots after 24 seasons with the team. Quite honestly, I didn't think that this was going to be something that was actually going to happen. You hear the rumors throughout the season of the potential that Bill Belichick could be out the door with a new team. The Patriots could look elsewhere going forward. Quite honestly, I never saw that as a reality. Based on the fact that, look, the Patriots were a horribly constructed roster. Yes, this season they were horrible. The quarterback situation was a mess. The receiver room, the entire roster is just not talented at all. But with the opportunity for the Patriots to have a high draft pick, in this case, they have the number 3 overall pick in this year's draft, and with tons of quarterback prospects available with Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and the potential for the number 1 pick to be available from Chicago, I thought that this was a perfect situation for Bill Belichick and the Patriots to go out there and get their new quarterback for the future and set themselves up for another potential dynasty. Ultimately, though, that is not what happens. Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, Bill Belichick, come to an agreement that what's best for this team and what's best for both parties is to part ways and move on. And first, let's just Bill Belichick has had an all-time resume, all-time run with the New England Patriots. He is the greatest NFL coach of all time, arguably the greatest football coach of all time, although he has someone who just retired yesterday who is up there in terms of greatest football coaches of all time. But in terms of NFL, Bill Belichick is the greatest coach to ever stand on an NFL sideline. 24 seasons with the Patriots, 12 Super Bowl appearances, winning 6 Super Bowl titles, 333 career victories with the New England Patriots, including the playoffs. He has 30 playoff wins with the Patriots. He has 31 playoff wins as a head coach, 17 AFC East division titles, 9 AFC championship games. He's had 21 winning seasons as the head coach of the New England Patriots. A big part of his success, obviously, is Tom Brady winning all of his Super Bowls with Brady. And then obviously once Brady left that offseason to go to Tampa Bay and the Patriots seemingly decided to move off of him, the success of New England and Bill Belichick started to cease to exist. They were not as good without Tom Brady, but also you can look at the roster around them. They were not constructed well. The quarterback play has been iffy. Mac Jones, I know, had a good rookie season. There is a Pro Bowler, but since then he has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. The receiving room was lacking. Just the entire roster in New England has not been put up, executed, and built to a standard that is going to produce a winning product on the field. But Bill Belichick is still, in my opinion, the best coach or a top 5, top 3 coach in the NFL today. Not only is he the greatest coach of all time, but still today, he is one of the best coaches in the NFL. And as mentioned in the press conference that the Patriots had today with Belichick and the owner Robert Kraft, Belichick is not done coaching. He will and he wants to continue coaching, and he will do so. And most likely it will be this offseason where he finds himself a new team, a new organization to go to and be the head coach and potentially be the general manager of that team. So what is that potential team for Bill Belichick? Well, there's currently a plethora of head coaching opportunities, head coaching vacancies around the NFL. The Chargers, the Commanders, the Titans, the Panthers, the Falcons, the Seahawks, and the Raiders are all teams that are actively searching for a new head coach. But I don't think those are the only teams that could be interested in getting Bill Belichick. I think there's some teams here that yet haven't fired a head coach, but could hear this Bill Belichick news of him being available on the market to be the new head coach and say that it is an upgrade to move off of our current coach and go grab Bill Belichick. And 3 of these teams are playoff teams right now. They are currently in the playoffs that I have put down. Those teams, the first 2 not in the playoffs, are the Saints and the Bears. I think the Saints, now, I don't think it's a place where he could go, but it is a place where if you're the Saints, Bill Belichick is an easy upgrade over Dennis Allen. And I think you would not be doing the right thing to at least reach out to Belichick, see if he would interview, propose the idea of him being the head coach. And if he is interested and it does work out, then you obviously move off of Dennis Allen. That would be a clear upgrade. Now, in terms of would he actually go there, I don't think that is the case. The roster has some talented pieces on it, but the quarterback situation with Derek Carr is not a guy that Bill Belichick is going to be able to lead and work with to go win a Super Bowl. And look, wherever Bill Belichick goes, he's going to have, 3 to 5 plus seasons, and 3 to 5, maybe even more seasons with that team to go and build a Super Bowl contender. And he's going to want to win a Super Bowl. Wherever he goes, he's going to want to win. I don't think he's going to want to go to a team where he's going to have to rebuild. Right? That's why a team like Carolina or the Titans doesn't seem like the best fit. Maybe he likes Bryce Young and what he is as a young quarterback, and maybe he can groom him into an NFL superstar. But wherever Bill Belichick is going to go is going to be a place where he thinks he has the opportunity to win a Super Bowl within the next 5 years. So the Saints, they're a team that could look at him. I don't think he's going to end up going there. The next one is the Bears. They've just recently announced they're keeping Matt Eberflus as head coach. They fired the OC, fired the quarterbacks coach. But this is a very interesting destination potentially for Bill Belichick if he was interested and if the Bears are interested in making him their new head coach, because they have the number 1 overall pick, they have the number 9 overall pick, and they have Justin Fields, and they have a talented roster around him. DJ Moore, they have they have Cole Kmet at the tight end position. They have nice players on defense with Montez Sweat. This Bears team, with the right head coach, which could be Matt Eberflus, but could definitely be Bill Belichick, and them having the number 1 overall pick, where Belichick could get Caleb Williams, you could trade Justin Fields. The Bears could be a very real possibility. Now, are they going to retract their statement and go back on their words and move off of Eberflus after just saying they're going to ride with him? I don't know. But the Bears could be a very interesting destination. The Buccaneers. Now, from a pure roster standpoint, the Buccaneers would make sense. I know their current head coach, Todd Bowles, is their head coach, I believe. I'm pretty sure he's their head coach. Yeah, Todd Bowles, their current head coach, is a good head coach. But if their first round playoff matchup against the Eagles in the wild card round this weekend goes ugly, Baker doesn't perform well, and the team doesn't look good, they still have a talented roster around them. But is Belichick really going to go to where Tom Brady just was? I don't see the Buccaneers as a possibility. The Eagles. What if the Eagles lose this weekend to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Nick Sirianni on the hot seat. They don't perform well. he loses the locker room. This would be a perfect destination for Bill Belichick with the talent on that roster. They have a quarterback in Jalen Hurts. They have the skill position players of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Swift. They have the players on the defensive side of the ball. And they have a GM in place in Howie Roseman, who is one of the best executives in the National Football League. The Eagles, if they decided to move on from Nick Sirianni, would be a clear upgrade in getting Bill Belichick. And the final team that hasn't fired their head coach, but is a playoff team that is going to be one that's going to be rumored in these Bill Belichick sweepstakes is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. I think Mike McCarthy is a great head coach. I think he's done great as the coach of the Cowboys over the last 2 seasons. The record shows that. Now, obviously, when it comes to the Cowboys, the one thing that matters is playoff success. And if Mike McCarthy and this Cowboys team don't put out a good showing in this playoff run, meaning they lose to the Packers on this weekend, if they lose on Sunday, or if they make it to the next round and if they lose in an ugly fashion, Jerry Jones has the potential to overreact, fire Mike McCarthy, and go out there and snag Bill Belichick. And that would be a tremendous hire. Belichick, the Cowboys, America's team, the greatest football coach of all time, going to the Cowboys with Jerry Jones and the roster that is there. I think the Cowboys have a Super Bowl winning roster this season. I think they can win a Super Bowl this year. But if you added Bill Belichick to be the head coach of that team, they would be guaranteed. They would almost be favorites to win a Super Bowl with Bill Belichick as their head coach. So out of all of these places, all of these openings and potential openings for Bill Belichick as a head coaching candidate, I think there's really 4 teams that really make the most sense for Bill Belichick. I think the Atlanta Falcons are one of those teams that makes a lot of sense. They're in a horrible division. The Buccaneers won that division going 9-8. You have the Saints, the Panthers, and then obviously the Atlanta Falcons in that division. The one thing, there's really 2 things that the Atlanta Falcons need. One, they need a quarterback. Desmond Ridder is not the quarterback of the future. He is not going to be able to lead you to the playoffs. And number 2, they need a head coach. Arthur Smith was never able to implement his system. He never used his talented skill position players correctly. But putting Bill Belichick on this Falcons team, I know he's a defensive-oriented coach, but he is still a tremendous offensive mind as well. With the skill position players that they have of Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, who is a top 5 pick in the NFL draft a few years ago, one of the greatest tight end prospects of all time, Kyle Pitts, who I still think has a ton of potential if he is used correctly. If he is used in a role like Travis Kelce, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, if he is used correctly, he can be one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Drake London, they have a top NFL draft pick this year. The Atlanta Falcons could really, really make some noise with Bill Belichick and whatever quarterback they decide to get, whether it's through the draft, through free agency, through trade. The Falcons, to me, are a realistic destination for Bill Belichick. Another one would be the Seahawks. They just moved off of Pete Carroll, which we'll get to in a minute. Dan Quinn seems to be one of the favorite names in terms of the Seahawks head coaching search. I think Mike Vrabel is a candidate for them too. But Bill Belichick going up there to Seattle with that roster, they have a talented group. The question for them this offseason, for me, is going to be, are they going to look for the quarterback of the future? Geno Smith had another solid season, not as good as his 2022 season. But at what point are they going to look for the future, whether it's this year in the draft with maybe a Bo Nix, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy? Do they move up for a Jaden Daniels, a Drake May, a Caleb Williams? Do they go all in on a guy like that? But at what point are they going to go and take the quarterback of the future in Seattle? I think Seattle would be a potential destination for Bill Belichick. The Raiders could be one. I think they're going to stick with Antonio Pierce, the interim head coach from this season. The Chargers are going to be one that is thrown around a lot. With the franchise quarterback in place in Justin Herbert, they should be the most attractive head coaching destination for any head coaching candidate out there. You have the quarterback in place, you have the talent on the offensive side, and you have a top 5 draft pick in this year's draft. They don't have much cap space, but you're able to release players like Khalil Mack, or restructure some contracts, and then maybe be able to build this roster and build the defensive side of the ball. And I think Belichick would really be able to improve this Chargers team collectively and really mold Justin Herbert into a quarterback that's going to be able to go and win playoff games. So I think the Falcons, the Seahawks, the Chargers, and then I would say one of these teams that has yet to officially fire their head coach. Cowboys, Eagles, maybe the Bears. I think it's one of those teams that hasn't yet fired their coach that could be in the running for Bill Belichick. But he's going to take his time with what team he wants to go to. He is the greatest coach of all time. He has a tremendous 24-year run with the New England Patriots. It is crazy to imagine that now it is officially over. It is a new regime here in New England. It's going to be interesting to see what head coach the Patriots decide to go with now. Do you go in-house with the favorite candidate being Gerard Mayo, who played under Belichick, who's coached under Belichick, who seems to be the favorite in terms of taking over that head coaching responsibility? Or do you go with a guy like Mike Vrabel, who's in the Ring of Honor, who's been a conversation of head coaching to be the head coach of this team in the future? That will be interesting to see as well. But Belichick, he's going to take his time with whatever team he decides to end up going to. He's not going to go to a bad situation. He's going to go to where he feels he has the best chance to win a Super Bowl championship and compete for multiple Super Bowl titles. I don't think Belichick's going to be out of place for 3 years. I think he's looking 5, maybe even more than that. But 5 at the minimum, he's going to be at this new with this new team for at least 5 seasons. Another head coach, another one of the greatest football coaches of all time, Nick Saban, has announced his retirement from head coaching at the University of Alabama. And Saban is, without a doubt, the greatest college football coach of all time. 7-time national champion. He's won 6 national championships at the University of Alabama, 3 BCS, 3 college football titles. He also won that national championship at LSU in the early 2000s. He's had 17 seasons at Alabama with a 292, 71-1 record. He is number 5 all-time in wins. He has 9 SEC championship titles. At Alabama, he has a 201-29 record. He's never lost more than 3 games in a season since that. I think it was the 2010 Alabama season. 19 bowl wins and 109 weeks. Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide were ranked number 1 in the AP poll. This move came as a shocker. Saban retiring yesterday came out of nowhere. There was some conversations throughout the season, sprinkled here and there, and after the loss to Michigan about could this potentially be Nick Saban's last game, but it was never a serious conversation. It was never given serious consideration that Nick Saban could be done coaching at Alabama and could be done coaching in general. But here we are, and Nick Saban has officially announced his retirement as the head coach at Alabama. And he says, when he did his interview with ESPN, he said it was age, it was his ability to commit 3, 4, 5 years to these recruits that are trying to commit, and he's trying to persuade to go to the University of Alabama. He could not ensure them that he would be there for the next 3, 4, 5 years of their collegiate careers, because all of these commits that are committing to the University of Alabama are committing to play under Nick Saban. And if he's not going to be there, they're not going to go there. And you've already seen that with his retirement. One of the best 5-star wide receiver recruits in the high school class is already decommitted. You have tons of guys decommitting, transferring, entering the transfer portal, trying to rescind their national letter of intent. So this Nick Saban retirement sends shockwaves throughout not only college football, but the sport of football in general, the professional, the NFL level, and the college football level. Because Nick Saban's retirement opens the door for many possibilities across college football. First of all, who is going to replace Nick Saban as the head coach of Alabama? Number two, how many of these players on the Alabama roster or commits to the school are going to decommit, enter the transfer portal, look to go elsewhere? And what if this new Alabama head coach is an NFL guy, right? It's not just the potential of it being a current college coach is not limited to college. The next coach of Alabama is not limited to being a current college football coach. It could be a guy from the NFL. And a name that's been circulating out there, I don't think it's going to happen by any means, is DeMeco Ryans. He played at Alabama, current head coach of the Houston Texans. Would he leave an NFL job to go to his alma mater at Alabama? I don't think so. But there's potential for Mike Vrabel, maybe another current NFL head coach to go and coach at Alabama. I don't think it's likely, but it is a possibility. And there is a long list of potential candidates to take over this Alabama job. And Nick Saban is going to help this school, help the program search for that new head coach. And there's a lot of guys that are on this list as potential candidates to take over this job. Steve Sarkisian, the current Texas head coach, he was on that Alabama coaching staff under Nick Saban after he got fired from USC many years ago. The current Texas head coach, could he leave to go to Alabama? I don't think this one is likely. Look, Texas is on the come up. They just made the college football playoff. They almost made the national championship game. And now the Texas Longhorns are just now entering the SEC. I think if Texas was still in the Big 12, this could be a real possibility for Steve Sarkisian to go and take that Alabama job. But with them being in the SEC officially now, with them being one of the top football programs in the country over the last few years, I don't see that as a real possibility. Dabo Swinney, the current Clemson head coach, does seem like a real possibility to be the next Alabama head coach. He has multiple national titles at Clemson. He's really built that program up to be one of the best football schools in the ACC and in college football in general. But Clemson has struggled the last few years. And I think if Dabo, who is a proven head coach, he is one of the best head coaches in college football, he could easily be persuaded and be bought out to go to Alabama and be the next face of this school, of this program. Some other guys, Kalen DeBoer at Washington, Mike Vrabel, the former Titans head coach, as I mentioned, Lane Kiffin, who also was originally at one point on this Alabama staff under Nick Saban. He's the current Ole Miss head coach. He could be a potential guy. Mark Novell, the Florida State head coach. And then these are some two, I don't know if they're long shots. One of them is definitely, but the other one, you never know. And the one that you never know about is Deion Sanders. Could Deion leave this Colorado Buffaloes program that he just joined and take over as the head coach at Alabama, bring over Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, all of these recruits and all of these transfers that they have been getting over the last few years, bring it into the SEC and be the head coach and be the guy who takes over for Alabama? We know that Deion and Nick Saban have a tremendous relationship. Could it be that Deion Sanders is the next head coach at Alabama? And the other name that I put here is Lincoln Riley at USC. Now, Lincoln Riley's buyout is rumored to be a excessively large number. And yes, Bama could pay it, but it's rumored to be almost $80 million to buy out Lincoln Riley's contract from USC. Then you have to pay him a contract as well. I don't think Lincoln Riley's going to leave USC. I don't think Bama is really going to be targeting him. That could be a situation, could be a guy. If Bama really wants the right head coach for this team, Lincoln Riley could be bought out of USC. Let me fix the camera real quick. He could be bought out at USC and be the next head coach at Alabama. I don't think it is a realistic possibility. But those are, in my opinion, those are some of the top candidates to take over this Alabama job. And for me, the favorites would probably be Deion Sanders, Mike Norvell, Dabo Swinney, and maybe even Lane Kiffin. And there's probably a bunch of other names out there as well. I know the Oregon head coach was rumored. He's already denied it. He's saying, I'm staying put in Oregon. But there's going to be tons and tons of people interested in taking this job. But ultimately, I think it's going to come down to Nick Saban's decision, as well as obviously the school, of what head coach they decide to go with going forward to take over for Nick Saban and lead this program into the future at Alabama. Another one of the greatest coaches of all time has found himself out of a job, and that is Pete Carroll, who has spent the last 14 seasons with the Seattle Seahawks, is officially out as the head coach of this team. The Super Bowl champion with the Seattle Seahawks, taking down the Denver Broncos way back in that Super Bowl against Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos squad. 2 Super Bowl appearances during his time with the Seattle Seahawks. He has had a winning record in 11 of 14 seasons there, 137 wins, which is the highest in Seattle Seahawks history, 10 playoff wins since 2010. Pete Carroll is officially out as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. And this one really came as a surprise. It came out of nowhere. It was not speculated at all that Pete Carroll would be canned this offseason and out as the head coach of this team. It was not a realistic possibility in anyone's mind. Maybe some people speculated that, hey, look, Pete Carroll could be on the way out. But he said in his post-game presser of the last game of the season that he wants to continue to coach. He would like to be the coach of this team for as long as they'd like to have him. Ultimately, they agree to part ways. Pete Carroll has said that he went in there. He wanted to continue to coach. And he tried to persuade. All right, I don't know where we left off at. Anyways, Pete Carroll. He tried what he said in his press conference where he was, after he was announced to be relieved of his duties as the head coach of the Seahawks. He went in there and he battled to be the head coach, to continue coaching this team. And ultimately, they decided to move on from him. The reports are he's going to stay around as an advisor for the Seattle Seahawks. He says they're still trying to work that out. I think ultimately the Seahawks are trying to go in a different direction. They're obviously trying to get younger, new face in there. And the leading candidate seems to be Dan Quinn, who used to be the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks, went on to Atlanta to be the head coach there, where he took them to a Super Bowl, and then got fired from there and has been the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys since. He seems to be the leader in the clubhouse in terms of taking over this head coaching job with the Seahawks. But as I mentioned earlier, Bill Belichick could be a guy that takes over this head coaching job in Seattle. And I also think Mike Vrabel, the former Titans head coach, who is regarded in the NFL as one of the best coaches in the league, I think he could be a guy that the Seahawks look at as one of the head coaching candidates for this team. This Seattle job, it should be one of the top jobs in the head coaching market for any coach out there. This should be a very attractive destination if you're a head coach out there. You have a great front office in place, a great culture established in Seattle, and you have great players on both sides of the ball. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker. On the defensive side of the ball, they have Devon Witherspoon, who's going to win defensive rookie of the year. They have tremendous players on both sides of the ball. And obviously, the quarterback, Geno Smith, he is a good quarterback. He had a solid season. 2022, he was tremendous. But a new head coach could go in there, whether it's Dan Quinn, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, another guy. And they could be able, with this quarterback draft class that is very star-studded, has a lot of great prospects in it, and they could go out there and draft the quarterback of the future while remaining competitive with Geno Smith. So Pete Carroll, will he stick around in Seattle, take his front office advisor role, or could he go and coach elsewhere? It wouldn't surprise me if he goes and coaches elsewhere. He has mentioned that he wants to continue coaching, and that he loves to coach in the National Football League. He is one of the greatest coaches of all time at the collegiate and the professional level, winning national titles at USC, winning a Super Bowl here in Seattle, one of the only coaches to ever really win at both the college and the pro level. Pete Carroll, a surprise move, relieving him of as duties of the head coaching position in Seattle. But it should be one of the most attractive destinations for head coaches this offseason. So there are 8 head coaching openings in the NFL. The Chargers, the Commanders, Raiders, Falcons, Panthers, Titans, Seahawks, and Patriots. And who knows, we could see more. We could see the Steelers, with reports of Tomlin taking a year off after this season. Maybe the Eagles, the Cowboys. You never know what other teams could look to fire their current head coach, especially with the news of Belichick and Mike Vrabel. But we are at 8 current head coaching openings. So I'm going to rank them in terms of the best and the worst landing spots in terms of which situation is the best, which is the worst. I think the best is the Chargers. You have the quarterback in Justin Herbert. You're in LA, and you have the pieces on both sides of the roster, and you have the number 5 overall pick to really build a really, really good football team. They have the pieces in place. They just need the right coach. They need to fix some things on the defensive side and get another playmaker for Justin Herbert on offense, and maybe even get some protection for him if possible as well. But I think the Chargers are easily the number 1 option because of the quarterback. I think the Falcons are the second best destination because all they need is a quarterback. They have the players on defense. They have the skill position players. They have the offensive line. They just need a quarterback. And if you're a head coach and you think there's a quarterback in this draft that you can get, or a guy in free agency, or a guy that you're somehow able to trade for, and you can plug him into this Atlanta Falcons roster, this team has the potential to be a really, really good team in the NFC in the future. As I think they're the second best destination this offseason. I think the number 3 would probably be the Seahawks because of their culture that is in place. They have they have pieces on this team, and they almost made the playoffs. They just missed out on it. I think that this is another destination that should be up there at the top of the list. I would say Washington is next at number 4. They have the number 2 overall pick in the draft. They have a new good ownership group, and whatever head coach takes over this team is going to have reign for the next 5+ years to really establish his team, establish his culture, and is really going to be left alone in that regard. He's not going to be under tons of pressure to win right away. So I think the Washington job is probably the 4th best landing spot this offseason. The Raiders would probably be 5, but I think they're going to stick with Antonio Pierce. The Panthers would be 6th for me because Bryce Young, although the ownership with David Tepper, he does not seem to be a great owner. He just wants to win, and he'll do whatever it takes to win. But they have Bryce Young, and if you're a coach that you think Bryce Young is a guy and you think you can mold him into a star NFL quarterback, the Panthers would be a prime destination. I think the Patriots will be the second to last, the second least desirable location because the expectation there is going to be high. You're taking over for Bill Belichick, but you do have the number 3 overall pick in a draft where you have the potential to get a very, very good quarterback. And I think the least desirable location is going to be the Titans. Their roster lacks a lot. Is Will Levis the quarterback? I don't know. I think he's going to be good, but with if you're getting a new head coach, the head coach might want to move off of Will Levis. The offensive line is horrible. There's no receivers on this team. Derrick Henry is out, and the defense, besides Jeffrey Simmons, really lacks any depth at all. So the Titans would be one of the least desirable locations in terms of ranking all of these. I think the Chargers, Falcons, and Seahawks are definitely at the top of the list. All right, moving on to NFL Super Wildcard Weekend taking place this weekend. The first round of the NFL playoffs this weekend. And we got a nice slate of games this weekend. 6 wildcard games And there's some very, very good matchups that are going to be taking place in the NFL this weekend. And the first one is going to be the Cleveland Browns taking on the AFC South champion Houston Texans, led by offensive rookie of the year, my offensive rookie of the year, CJ Stroud at quarterback. Cleveland is favored -2 in this game on the road. These two teams matched up in the regular season. Cleveland won this one 36-22. However, Houston was without CJ Stroud in this game. He was suffering out with a concussion. Looking at the Browns this year, their defense is obviously one of the best defensive units in the entire league, arguably the best defense in the NFL. They were first in yards allowed per game this season, 13th in points allowed, 28 takeaways on the defensive side of the ball this year. Offensively, will they be able to continue with the hot hand of Joe Flacco? Will Joe Flacco continue to be able to lead this team to success on the offensive side of the ball? They're 16th in yards and 10th in points per game this season. They have gone through tons. They've gone through tons of quarterbacks: Deshaun Watson, PJ Walker, DTR, and now Joe Flacco. The offensive line has gone through tons and tons and tons of different guys due to injuries. In this game, and moving over to the Texans are one of the, in my opinion, one of the most dangerous teams in this playoff this year in the AFC. They're 12th in yards, 14th in points per game on the offensive side, 14th in yards allowed defensively, 11th in points per game defensively, 24 takeaways on the defensive side of the ball, and they're led by CJ Stroud, who is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Texans at home, I think, look, Joe Flacco has been amazing as the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns this season during his limited time there. But ultimately, look, the Texans are the real deal. CJ Stroud is an elite quarterback and is a quarterback, in my opinion, that is capable of leading a team to the Super Bowl. Now, is that this team this year? I don't think so. But he has the qualities and the ability to lead a team to the Super Bowl. And this roster is talented. Nico Collins is a tremendous wide receiver for CJ Stroud. Dalton Schultz, Devin Singletary in the backfield for him. The offensive line has been playing good. The defense, are they going to be able to stop Joe Flacco? Because Joe Flacco is going to sling that ball around on Saturday. But I think the Texans win this game at home. I think it will probably be within a touchdown or so. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a good game because that Browns defense is legit. Right? If Flacco struggles, the Browns defense is still going to keep them in the game. CJ Stroud does have his hands full with one of the best defenses in the NFL. But I think when it comes down to the playoffs, it comes down to a few things. It comes down to coaching, quarterbacks, defense, and your ability to run the football. And I think the Texans outweigh the Browns in a few more of those categories. I think in terms of coaching and quarterback play, they have them there. Defense, the Browns got him there. But I think CJ Stroud is going to do what he can in his first NFL playoff game and win it for the Texans. Dolphins, Chiefs in Kansas City. Chiefs favored -4.5, heading into what is going to be one of the coldest playoff games of all time in Kansas City. The Dolphins had the AFC East title on lock all year until losing last week to the Bills on the last game of the regular season, which now puts them in Kansas City in one of the coldest games of all time for the Dolphins. This Dolphins team has a lot of guys questionable. Waddle, Hill, Mostert, Xavier Howard, Javon Holland, all questionable for this game. And the Dolphins have been on a skid. They have not been able to win against against really good football teams this entire year. These two teams played against each other week 9 in Germany. The Chiefs won 21-14. This game that they played in the regular season, I don't take it into account at all. First of all, that was so long ago in the season. And number 2 is in Germany, neutral site. I ignore it. The Dolphins offensively are first in yards, second in points. They're 10th in yards allowed and 22nd in points allowed. 27 takeaways on the defensive side of the ball this season for the Miami Dolphins. The Chiefs, offensively, they have struggled this year. 9th in yards, 15th in points per game offensively. But their defense is one of the best and most elite defensive groups in the league this year. 2nd in yards and 2nd in points allowed defensively, and 17 takeaways on the season. I think the Chiefs are easily, I wouldn't say easily, but I think the Chiefs should win this game. It is at home in their stadium, and they are going to be the team that is more ready for this 0-degree weather in Arrowhead Stadium. And the Dolphins, with tons of guys questionable, with Mostert, Hill, Waddle. Hill should play, but will Mostert and Waddle play? Because without Waddle and without Mostert, this team is not the same team that they have been throughout the season when they've been at their highest. The Dolphins are a team with really high highs and really low lows, and especially against good teams. And the Chiefs are a good team. They're not as good as they were last year. And yes, the Chiefs have their own problems as well. Offensively, they have been out of sync all year. Kelsey has not been an elite tight end. He hasn't been the best tight end in the league this year like he has in years past. But Mahomes is still the quarterback of the Chiefs. And as long as he and Andy Reid and Travis Kelsey are on the field and on the sidelines, I think the Chiefs should be favored in almost any game that they play this playoff run. So the Chiefs, I think, will take down the Dolphins this weekend. Steelers, Bills. Buffalo favored -10 at home against the Steelers. This should be one of the easiest playoff picks of the entire weekend and of the entire NFL postseason, because the Steelers were lucky to get into the playoffs this year. They won 10 games, but they have Mason Rudolph starting at quarterback, who, sure, he's had a great few weeks as the starting quarterback of this team. But why is Kenny Pickett not in this game? I think if anyone gives you the best chance to win this game, it's got to be Kenny Pickett at quarterback. The Steelers are 25th in yards, 28th in points, averaging 17.9 points per game this season. They're 21st in yards allowed, 6th in points allowed. They had 27 takeaways on defense this season. The Bills, they're the hottest team in the NFL. They've won 5 straight games. They won the AFC East title. They're the number 2 seed in this AFC conference. They're 4th in yards, 6th in points per game offensively, 9th in yards allowed, 4th in points allowed at 18.3, 30 takeaways this season. They have given the ball away 28 times, but this Bills team is playing the best football in the NFL right now. Coming in, winning 5 straight games, winning the division. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and this Bills team know exactly what they need to do to go and win a Super Bowl. They need to win 4 games. That's what they've been saying at the end of that game against the Dolphins. 4 more. And the Bills, after this game against the Steelers, will only need 3 more wins to capture that Super Bowl title. I think they're the most dangerous team in this postseason, in this playoff run, out of any team in the NFL. Josh Allen has been an elite quarterback this entire season. You look at the interception and his turnovers, he turns over the ball a lot, but he is also a touchdown machine and one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And with James Cook seemingly emerging as one of the premier running backs in the NFL, they have a running game for the postseason, and their defense has been playing good. So give me the Bills to win this game. I would say by 2 touchdowns. Green Bay Packers, Dallas Cowboys. An all-time playoff matchup here between 2 all-time historic teams in the NFL. The Cowboys are favored -7 in this game at home. The Cowboys are 8-0 at home this season. They are the most elite home team in the entire NFL this season. But first, let's start with the Packers. Jordan Love, in his last 5 games, has 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, 71.3% of his passes have been completed for almost 1,300 yards. The Packers are 11th in yards, 12th in points per game, 17th in yards allowed, and 10th in points allowed this season. They have 18 takeaways, 18 giveaways. I think the Packers have truly came on in these last 5 games where Jordan Love has been playing elite level football. Really, ever since Thanksgiving, this Packers team has flipped the script, and all around this team is improving. Look, the running game is lacking. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon have not been healthy the entire season. But this receiver core with Reed, with Dobbs, with potentially Christian Watson, this is a receiver core that is young, that is inexperienced in terms of playoff battles. And Jordan Love is inexperienced too. This is a very young, inexperienced Green Bay Packers team, but they are a tough battle for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, look, the Cowboys are, in my opinion, a top 3, top 4 team in the entire NFL, and they are playing at home. They're, like I just said, they're 8-0 at home this season. They're 5th in yards per game, 1st in points per game at almost 30 points per game. 5th in yards allowed, 5th in points allowed defensively with 26 takeaways. Dak Prescott has been playing MVP football all season. CeeDee Lamb has been arguably the best wide receiver in the entire league this season. Tony Pollard, and the defense for the Cowboys is elite. I think the Packers are going to put up a tough fight. And if they won, yes, it would surprise me if the Packers won. But it also would, I expect the Cowboys to win, but it wouldn't surprise me if Jordan Love balls out, because I think Jordan Love is an elite quarterback and is the future face of this Packers franchise at the quarterback position. But I think the Cowboys end up winning this game. I think it will be close, within a touchdown, within 10 points. But the Cowboys should, and I think will, win this game against the Green Bay Packers. Let's move here to the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Detroit Lions in Detroit, the first home playoff game for the Lions in the history of Ford Field. Lions are favored -3 in this game. This is going to be one of the best playoff games of this NFL playoffs this year. Matthew Stafford taking on his former team in Detroit in a playoff game. The Rams have been, in my opinion, a very under-the-radar team this season. Their offense is incredible with Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee, and Matthew Stafford slinging the rock around this season. They're 7th in points, 7th in yards, 8th in points. Their defense isn't as strong as it was in years past, but they are an elite offensive team, and so are the Detroit Lions. Look, this is going to be one of the best offensive playoff games of the entire postseason. These are two elite offenses and two very mid to below average defenses. The Lions, they're going to be most likely without Sam Laporta, which is a big loss for them at the tight end position. But they still will have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. I think this game is going to come down to turnovers, and Jared Goff has turned the ball over a lot this season. Matthew Stafford has his own turnovers as well throughout the season. But I think the Rams take this one on the road. I think the Lions are an elite team. They are really, really good offensively, but so are the Rams. And I think when it comes down to these two quarterbacks and who is going to make the least mistakes, I trust Matthew Stafford and the Rams to do just that. This should be a very, very high-scoring and very close game between these two teams. Final playoff game. And a lot of people are saying this one is going to be one of the more boring playoff matchups, or they're not excited about this Eagles-Buccaneers matchup. I think this could be one of the best playoff games of the entire weekend between the Eagles and the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay, because these are two elite. I don't want to say elite. These are two very, very good football teams. The Eagles have not been themselves this season. Not at all. They lost, five of their last 6 or something like that. They have not been playing good football at all of late. They're coming into the playoffs extremely, extremely cold, extremely opposite of what they need to do to go out there and be a team that you think can win a Super Bowl. But they have talent on this team. Jalen Hurts. Now, the question for him is he going to play? Because his finger got destroyed in the Week 18 loss to the Giants. And has he thrown a football yet this week? We don't know. Look, if Jalen Hurts doesn't play, this game is going to stink. But if he does play, this should be a very good game with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. And the Eagles' defense has not been good at all this season. 30th in points allowed, 26th in yards allowed, 28 giveaways on the Eagles this season. But the Buccaneers are a team that I think this is my pick to win this game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Rashad White, and Baker Mayfield have been playing very, very good football this season. Mayfield is going to come in. He has a lot to prove. He's had a lot to prove all season. He has a lot to prove on Monday night in this game against the Eagles. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Buccaneers eliminate the Eagles, who have been playing horrible this season, and Baker Mayfield wins this game for Tampa Bay. So give me the Buccaneers to win this game. The rest of the playoffs, in terms of bracket, I'm not going to make any predictions. We'll just go do those week by week as they come. We'll do the divisional ones as we get them. honestly, I'm having a hard time seeing how the Super Bowl is not either the Ravens or Bills in the AFC facing either the Cowboys or the 49ers. Um, that I'm just having a really hard time seeing another team in either conference making it to the Super Bowl. I know we were going to talk MLB in this episode. Forget that. We're almost at an hour. I don't know when the next episode of this podcast will be. Probably next week, where we'll recap all of the NFL wildcard games, talk about whatever else happens in the world of sports. A lot has been happening over the last 48 hours. But we'll be back most likely next week with another episode. We'll try to get to the MLB stuff by then. Hopefully some free agents signed. There's still a lot of great MLB free agents out there. Blake Snell, Bellinger, Matt Chapman, Josh Hader. We'll be back next week with another episode recapping the NFL wildcard weekend. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. Remember, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music is where you can watch or listen to the podcast. Check the description for everywhere else to go. Thank you guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.